Welcome everyone to the Burnt Pancakes Podcast. I have got an incredible conversation with you today. I'm sitting down with Magan Worth. She is a mom I met a few months ago. And when I heard her story of how she went from the Marines to San Diego cop to now killing it as a Texas realtor, all in the midst of motherhood, I knew I had to have her on to share your story. She is going to inspire you with just her courage to find joy in life and her struggles with being a single mom. We're talking everything. So stay tuned because you do not want to miss this conversation. Hello, Magan. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So when I first met you, I was like just in the beginning process of starting my podcast and like, I know I want to do this. And when I heard like little snippets of your story, I was like, oh, take mental notes. She is coming on. I want her to come on. So I'm glad you're finally here. We've matched our schedules up. We could do it.
I know. And thank you for like being super flexible with that too. Cause like being mothers, like we had to like go for one day and then we had to reschedule it to another day. And I'm just glad that like the stars aligned.
Okay. So then I guess that brings up, tell us why you're in your closet right now. I love this. Your background is gorgeous. I love it.
So the stars didn't line that great because I am home. Well, my daughter's sick, so she's home, and I did throw her Nintendo Switch at her iPad. Spider-Man the movie is on. All the snacks.
Here's all the snacks. Yes.
And the crafts are out. So by the way, while we were recording this, she's about to be sick. So she's she can handle herself, but there is a bunch of paint in front of her right now. So I'm a little afraid to
see what
out of the closet to see what's waiting for me. But you know
yes.
what? I was going to make this work. We're not
send me a picture of what it all looks like when we're done recording. It's like that moment when they're like super quiet. You're like, they're really quiet. I don't want to disturb them, but oh God, I don't want to see what's happening over there. Oh.
Exactly. It's like, yeah, but I was like, I'm not gonna reschedule this. We're doing this.
That's mom life, right?
That's mom life. I have to. Yeah. So yeah. Sorry about the aesthetics. It's not as pretty as your background, but like, I mean, I got dresses. Maybe I should get like one of those sparkle dresses behind me as like.
Well, I love it because in every like picture you post, you are dressed so cute. But then when you said, "Oh, I used to be in the Marines and then I was a cop," and this, I'm like, "Whoa, tell me your story." So like, that's what I want to have a conversation about. Like, tell me how you went from the Marines to where you are, and somehow motherhood and single motherhood was part of that process. So give us your story.
All in the last like 10, 15 years, like just one right after the other. Just if I had to describe my life, it'd just be like a squirrel, like all different directions, trying everything out till I find like my perfect career. And I feel like I finally feel like I found my perfect career. But yeah, we'll just start from the beginning.
Do it.
I was that 20-year-old community college girl because I was working for a police department at the time as a community services officer in my hometown of Fremont, California.
Okay, and I was going to ask where you grew up.
It's kind of small, right outside of San Francisco. Okay. And I'm just completely miserable. I had a direction. I knew I wanted to get into law enforcement. I even put myself through the police academy at 20 years old, but going around to all the police departments trying to get that police officer position, it was borderline impossible. Everybody kept turning me down during the interview process, saying that I don't have enough life experience. And I'm like, what the heck is that supposed to mean? Like, what are you talking about? I have 2 years of community college. Is that not enough?
I'm 20. I'm so old. Did you feel like part of it was like you're a woman? Like, was that at all? Like,
I don't think it was that.
Your age.
It was my age. Oh my gosh. Like everybody had an issue with my age. They're like, you know what? You interview well. You put yourself through the academy. So it's like one less thing that a police department had to do. Mm-hmm. And I kept hitting that brick wall. I put in for San Francisco police. I even put in for my own police department. I put in for San Leandro, Oakland PD. And I kept getting to the lieutenant's interview. And they're like, we love you, but you're so young. You don't have any life experience. And I was like,
well, how do I get that?
Exactly. So a couple months goes by. I'm working all day, I'm going to school all day. I'm taking 7 to 8 classes, just criminal justice classes and stuff like that. And I was working at night at the PD. And I just woke up one day and I'm like miserable. I'm super sad. I'm busting my butt to try to make all of my dreams come true to become a police officer. And I keep hitting walls. I remember the day I woke up in my bed and I was like, they want life experience. I'm going to give them life experience. So I decided to join the Marine Corps.
Oh,
And
you
I was
just got
like, that's
chill.
the only way that I'm going to get life experience is if I join the military. And because I knew of a lot of police officers that I worked with who were former Marines, airmen, soldiers. And I was like, well, that's one way to get life experience because I can't just sit here and just
Take classes.
Wait for life experience. So I enlisted in the military.
Okay, what did your family think at this point? Were they like all on board or like, because I have 3 sons and I think like, oh my God, don't choose the military route. Like, I don't want you in danger.
It was hard. It was really hard because so me and my mother at the time, we did not get along. And they had her and my dad had me at 16. So I didn't really have that like mother-daughter relationship at the time. So I was predominantly living with my grandparents. And because my grandparents were like, well, you're too young to even raise a child. Like I was always with them. I was always with my grandparents. And so after my grandma died, I moved back in with my mom. And we didn't really have that close relationship. So her opinion in my case, like it didn't matter. I didn't care at the time what she thought. So when I did tell her, and my mom is very dramatic, and we got into a lot of fights over it, tons of fights over it. And I was like, well, I'm doing it. Like
my 20s.
This is where I feel like I need to be. I need to get out of here. I need to get the hell out of Fremont first off. And I need to see what else is out there for me. And I'm so glad I did. I ended up enlisting 2 months later. I was shipped off to Parris Island, South Carolina boot camp. And that's where my entire life journey I feel like that's where I really just woke up and became the person I am today. I think it all started in boot camp.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Were there a lot of women or is it like mostly men? What was it?
Well, obviously the Marine Corps itself is predominantly men, and only 8% of the Marine Corps is women. So at the time, they don't do this now, but at the time, all female recruits would go to South Carolina. And so all of them would train there, and then we would have some men, and then there would be a lot of men or male recruits over in San Diego as well. So they kind of split the men up depending on where they fall along the Mississippi line in the States. So like some go to the West Coast, some will go to the East Coast, but all women went to the East Coast. So there was a good majority of women. There was 60 girls in my platoon. Wow. And we got close, like really close. Like I mean, you're like showering with girls, you're training with these girls, like you're getting to know these girls like they're your sisters. And I still talk to a lot of them to this day. I mean, because we're going through hell together, and if anything is going to bring you close to somebody, it's going to be like
boot camp.
Boot camp for sure. And that's where my entire life changed, was that moment, first day. So, and that's also, we'll get into like those details later, but I ended up doing that. That was a whole experience. And then right after I got done with the Marine Corps, I was in law enforcement 5 days after I got out.
Did you ever go overseas? Were you like, how long were you in the Marines for?
No, I did 8 years. I did 4 years active and 4 years in the reserve. So while I was active duty, I unfortunately, as much as I tried to get on one of those deployments, it just didn't happen for me. My MOS, or our job in the Marine Corps, mine was communications, but I ended up working what's called training and operations up at the battalion. And unfortunately, I could not get on any deployment. As much as I tried, much as I asked, all I wanted to do was deploy. I mean, that was the whole point of joining the military, is so that I can have that opportunity and that experience. I wanted it so bad.
Life experience,
I wanted it. And it just didn't happen. So I ended up doing a lot of training operations where I did get to go to Japan. I've been to all over the States and just training months on end, which was fun. Field operations are a lot of fun, but it kind of sucks because there's no tents. You're not showering. You're dirty. For
and you
months
look at you now, and I would have never guessed. I'm like, you're so girly and like.
You make it work, girl. I used to be out there in the middle of nowhere. We'd be out in like the desert somewhere, and I'd be out there with like a bottle of water and some little shampoos that I'd bring, and I would just be out in the middle, like washing
Oh
my
my
hair
gosh.
and like trying to keep clean because you're disgusting. There's nowhere to
Yes.
shower. We're out there for like months sometime. You learn how to like adapt and overcome. So that's
Mhm.
what I did.
There's
You
that
just
life experience for you, right?
exactly.
So you did that for I didn't realize you were there that long, 8 years, and then interviewed for the police. And that's
Yeah.
how
So
you got it?
1 year before I got off active duty. So I did 4 years active. The year before I got off active duty, I put in for San Diego Police Department, ended up getting that job. And while I was in the police academy, I was also doing the reserve side. So the
Got it.
weekends I was doing the Marine Corps thing, the weekdays I was doing the police officer thing. So at one point for 4 years, and this is obviously before I was married and had kids where I could do things like that, I was
Mhm.
working day in and day out, again, trying to manage like both because I almost didn't want to do the reserve thing, but I got a like a very rare opportunity that got presented to me. There was a master sergeant who asked if I could be the first female on the communication side to be in an infantry unit. I would be the first one on the reserve
Wow.
side. It was like, sure, why not? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if
There's an
I mean,
opportunity.
I was hoping that that would be my opportunity to deploy. Again, it didn't happen. So I actually, but I stuck around. It's called 4th LAR, little infantry unit on Camp Pendleton. I stuck around for 4 years and it didn't happen for me. But I did like I said, like I love that I got to do both. I got to
Yes.
wear 2 uniforms. It was so funny because my closet looked like a Halloween costume store because there
Oh
would
my
be like
God.
camis, dress blue, police uniform, honor guard uniform, like all of my uniforms, like 6 different uniforms just hanging up in my closet.
Oh
Literally
my
looked
God. So
like
it
a
was just like
Halloween.
nonstop work though. It was like work, 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 like weekdays, weekends.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you were a cop. Okay. What happens next?
Okay, so I want to say I was like 3 or 4 years into law enforcement. I ended up meeting my husband at the time. We dated for a little bit,
Was
and
he a
he
cop also?
no, he was
Okay.
active duty Marines, which
Got it.
it went against everything I believed. I'm one of those girls
I
that
will
you
never
don't
do
date people, you don't date your coworkers, you don't. And even like, and because even when I was active duty, I was like, I dated like the civilian guys, like people who had no affiliation with the
that.
military. I wanted privacy, and when you're dating other military members, like there's zero privacy. Everybody knows your business. So I purposely didn't date military, and I didn't date the officers that I worked with.
Yes.
And so I actually met him on one of the days that I was doing the Marine Corps thing, and had a huge crush on him. And yeah, like he's a pretty boy, he's a pilot. So I was like, okay, this one's might be different. Turns out, like we ended up getting married a year after we met, pregnant right away, and it kind of what happened was he kind of changed, and to the point where I was like, where the heck has this been? He turned into like this like alcoholic man, and I put my career on hold for about a year and a half to kind of raise the baby and stuff like that. While we ended up moving to Japan,
Oh,
so I put my career on hold.
was she born in Japan? Your
A
daughter?
month before we left for Japan, she was born. So she was this 4 week
Wow.
old baby. Next thing you know, my career's on hold. The PD was like, well, hold your spot, just go.
Whoa.
And at the time, I didn't even want to go. I was seeing a side of my husband that I've never seen before. He was drinking all the time. He was intoxicated all the time.
Oh my
He
gosh.
was depressed and always taking things out on me. But I was like, you know what? We're going to go. I'm going to push through this. I'm going to work through this, and maybe it'll get better. Everybody said, just go. It'll get better. You guys just go to therapy.
Yeah.
It got worse, and so I was with him for a little over a year in Japan, and the alcoholism got worse. It turned into like emotional abuse, to where again, like I was also dealing with my own issues. Right after my daughter was born, I got diagnosed with PTSD and severe anxiety. Just from my PTSD came from being in law enforcement, and unfortunately having to hold a baby that had passed from SIDS, giving
Oh,
CPR to an 8-week-old baby who didn't make it. you think that like in the time before, this was before I had my daughter, but you think that you are processing it, like nothing's bothering you. You're like, okay, it's sad. You know what I mean? Like it's sad. But then after I had my daughter, that same night that I had my daughter, I had my full blown panic attack.
Wow.
And I was screaming, she's going to die. I was like convinced that she was going to be taken from me. And
I can't even imagine like the things you saw in your work. And then it all comes up to the surface.
It did. And it didn't happen until I had my daughter. And I ended up going to therapy 2 weeks later because I wasn't sleeping at all. I was just awake day in, day out. And which made my husband really mad. He was always drunk. So every time I'd have these like panic attacks or breakdowns, probably because I was extremely sleep deprived, I was having a lot of them. Like he would just standing over me, yelling at me, screaming at me that I'm a terrible mom and this and that, and how I don't deserve to be a mother. And if I ever left him, you know, he was going to take Olivia away from me. And so it got bad to the point where I felt so trapped. I didn't have any friends in Japan. I was completely isolated. I mean, not a lot of people speak English. So even going to Starbucks, you know, it's like I didn't have anybody to talk to. Nobody spoke English. I ended up meeting another mom, but wasn't there long enough to kind of get to know her. But
like motherhood is just enough to rock your world, but you put all of that on top of it, and it's like that's too much for one person to handle.
No brand new mother should ever be isolated, and especially if you are isolated with a partner who is not supportive whatsoever. It took a lot of courage to leave because I did have a job back in San Diego. I could always go back and they did hold my spot, but I sold my house. I was like, where would I go? How would I work and be a single mom at the same time? All these like what ifs were just going through my head. I felt
by yourself.
All by myself. I would have had to do it by myself. Oh, and then on top of that, like I had my dog. And so I was like, how am I going to get a baby, my dog, and all of our stuff
back into
San Diego?
Oh,
it was scary. It was really scary. And then telling him that I had to leave, telling my husband at the time that I had to leave, it got nasty. It got so bad to the point where he didn't give me a choice. Like, I don't believe that anybody should ever place hands on another human being. And it did get to that point. So I was like, okay, I have to leave. Like, I'm not raising my daughter around this. It's time to pack up and go. And I just did it. I just did it. I left most of the stuff in Japan. I sold what I could. And I waited for him he had to go on a field operation to Korea for 2 weeks. And I left during that 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah. Bought a house and pressed the reset button on my life and went back to work. Immediately went back.
You came back to San Diego.
Yep. I went back to San Diego because that's where my job was. So, and I got right back, and they literally threw me back in a patrol car. And that's when, again, like, I feel like I was tested as like being a single mom, still dealing with like, and I'm still pretty sure I had some sort of postpartum depression and anxiety.
I feel like it takes years for that to like.
Oh yeah. Because I had to get a nanny, and nobody had ever watched my child up until that point. Because again, when you're dealing with PTSD, anxiety, I wouldn't leave her with a sitter. I wouldn't leave her anywhere. I always had to have her with me. I called her my shadow because everywhere that I was, she was there. And so this was the first time that all of a sudden I'm trusting this 22-year-old girl with my entire world. And I set up cameras all over the house, and she knew, but it was just so I could watch my daughter while I was at work. I would have my phone next to my laptop in my patrol car, and I would just watch her play all day, and I'd just be crying in between radio calls, like.
But did you have this feeling of like, I'm supposed to be the one there?
Yeah.
I mean, my experience is nothing like yours, but when I went back to teaching, my son was 4 months old, and I left him at this like little grandma's house, like daycare. I was like, I shouldn't be leaving you with someone else. I'm the one who's supposed to be with you. And it just ate me up. It was awful.
The mom guilt was real. And
she was a year old, you said? When
she was like 1.5, I think. She was like 1.5. And just the biggest fears like washed over me. Cause again, like being in law enforcement, you can see how accidents can take your child away from me. And I just kept thinking like just
your mind goes to the worst.
God, don't let anything bad happen to her. She wasn't, the nanny wasn't even allowed to take her out of the house. I was just too afraid that she'll turn her back for a second. And next thing you know, Olivia's in the street I was like, just make sure that you're always just watching her. And a couple times, like my first 2 weeks back, I had full-blown panic attacks in my patrol car. My sergeant had to come get me because I couldn't breathe. I was just hyperventilating. All I wanted to do was just hold my daughter, especially if there was something at work that a child was hurt or passed away. All I wanted to do was go home and just hold her. And I did. And most of it, luckily, I worked with some amazing women who allowed that to happen because they knew my situation and they knew that I was having a really hard time with it, with the, being away from her. And there was times where this one female officer, I love her to this day. She would be like, go home and change. Just go home or change out of your uniform and go home. Go be with your daughter. It's fine. Nothing. We can do without you today. Just go home. And they were very, very supportive of that. But yeah, that's intense. Yeah.
That's a lot. So how long did you do that before you decided I'm done with the police force?
Another 4.5 years, I want to say. But it took, so I didn't know if I was going to be good at anything else. All I knew is law enforcement was something that it's all I've done. It's all I know. And I genuinely love helping people. It does light me up. And after I processed and got through the mom guilt and a little bit of the PTSD, I was going to therapy. I was doing self-development courses. I was trying to do whatever it took to be a better mom for my daughter. And I got really close with the nanny. So I was okay with leaving her with the nanny for a while. But again, like, I wasn't happy. I wanted a career where I could take my daughter to preschool. I can take her to gymnastics and have to do all of that stuff. Like, that's my job.
Right.
So it took the
right. Feel like you wanted to be a mom all your life, or was this like, because I think that's what killed me about going back to work, is like all my life I thought I was going to be a mom, and then going to work just like robbed me of that experience.
Oh yeah. I feel like I was born to be a mom. I still joke about it. Well, it's not like a really joke, but my thing is, like, I always feel like I don't do too many things right. Like, I'm pretty mediocre with my career, but the one thing I do right is a mom. I am a great mom, and I'll give myself that. And it took a long time, a lot of therapy for me to say that, coming out of an abusive marriage where I was talked down to, told that I was a terrible mom. So it did take time for me to be able to say that I'm a great freaking mom.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
We all are.
Like,
even with our
from her,
all of our mistakes. I forgot my kids' lunch the other day. I'm still a good mom. You're right. Yeah. We love our kids. Okay. Yeah. So then, how did you leave the police force?
It took the riots, and we won't get political with it. But it took me being taken away from her for 6 weeks straight during the Black Riot
2020 riot.
Yes, during those riots, I didn't see my daughter for 6 weeks straight. And in the back of my head, I'm like,
this isn't right.
One officer who, in my personal opinion, wasn't trained very well to handle a situation, took me away from my daughter, because now all of a sudden we're handling these protesters and the rioters, and we're working 22-hour shifts. And I had to fly my family in. Luckily, my cousins came from Northern California to stay with me in my house, because my nanny, like, she has a life too. She couldn't stay at my house all the time, even though she did. My family flew in and stayed with Olivia for a while. And I remember just, again, like, I hated, I was like, I hate this job. I remember just standing on the line, everybody screaming at us. At one point, at one point it was just getting very, very violent. And I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to make it home tonight. It got that bad. And even my nanny, she kept making the comments. She's like, gosh, she's like, and I told her, I was like, keep the news off, because it was giving her anxiety. And she would cry. She's like, I really hope you're going to be okay. And I'm like, I'll be fine. I'll be okay. Because I did get to go home for 1 or 2 hours. I would change, shower. And then we were on call too. So I was also on the riot squad, which I didn't ask to be. I got chosen to be on the riot squad. So we were on call too. So I was constantly, like, coming home. Then I would have to go back and go back to work. And I mean, we were sleeping under desks. We were sleeping in, at one point, because the rioters destroyed our patrol cars, we had to get these, like, big white vans. And so we were sleeping in these vans. Half of them, the AC didn't work in them. So we're just, like, sweating hot in all of our riot
summer. Gear. Yeah.
Oh, it was so
all of
miserable.
that, and your daughter's at home, and all you want to do is be there.
All I want to do was freaking be there. And I was like, there has to be a better way. There has to be another career where I can leave here, never ever have to look back again.
Mhm.
And I don't know what it was, but just real estate. I was like, that's what I should do. And of course, it's not.
You just got like ping an idea, like, let's try that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not an easy career just to get into.
No, there are tests, and you have to learn a lot.
And like, you got to know people. Like real estate, it's all about who you know, so you can have all those referrals. And I mean, but I was like, if I'm going to do this again, I'm going to go big. I sold my house, grabbed my daughter, moved to Texas. I don't know a single
What
person.
made you pick Texas? Did you know anyone there?
No. Okay. So there's a story about Texas too, but, no, but like even my dad, my whole family was like, what are you doing? You're leaving your career to move to a state. You don't know anybody. How are you going to get into real estate when you don't know anybody? And I'm like, if other people can do it, I can figure it out too.
Did you feel like you just had this like inner knowing, and it's like, no matter what anyone else said, like when I quit my teaching job, I'm like, everyone's going to think I'm crazy. I did this for 17 years, but there was something in me that was like, I have to do this. I have to. And in my head, I was like, it feels crazy, but I have to do it.
And that's the thing. What a lot of people don't understand is they think that like they see these other women who are just like, screw it, I'm just going to go, snap their fingers, and then they're off. But here's the thing, like, it doesn't mean we weren't terrified. I was
thinking about it for a whole year. Like, oh my God, it's been on my mind for a whole year. Yeah.
I was scared. And my saying is, do it scared. Because if you have that strong intuition pull that you need to do this, I mean, I had panic attacks at night. I would wake up in the middle of the night, like, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? My house is on the market, and now I'm sold. Like every step of the way, I'm having all these panic attacks. But I would wake up in the morning and be completely fine. So that's when I knew, okay, I am on the right path. I need to keep pushing through. I need to keep going. Stop letting my ego give me these like terrible ideas that I'm going to fail. Yep. And in my mind, I'm telling myself, I'm not going to fail. It's not going to be an option for me. I'm not failing. And,
it may look different than I maybe initially think, but it's going to work out.
Oh yeah, exactly. And I was okay with that. Like, and I'm a very spiritual person. And I told God, I was like, just guide me. I'm not going to fail. There might be some detours along the way, but at the ultimate goal is I'm going to be successful. And again, I packed up, put everything in a pod, drove out here to San Antonio, and everything fell into place. I ended up getting my real estate license out here. I didn't even have a job at the time. And I just
wait, so when you were still in California, you got your real estate license, but the tech. Oh no. Man, you're brave. You're brave. Love it.
I had to get out. That's my fear of being stuck in law enforcement was scarier than the fear of failing in Texas. I was that sick to my freaking stomach. I needed a life reset. And as soon as I got here, don't get me wrong, I hit the ground running. I knew there was work to be done. I threw my daughter in school. She was in pre-K at the time. So I threw her in school and studied. I would be up at 4 a.m. So I'd study before she was awake. And then I would drop her off at school, and then I would study all day. And then I would take my proctored tests. There's 6 proctored tests that you have to take. And then you have to take your major tests. I studied my butt off, passed my first, my real estate exam on the first shot. And that's when things started happening for me. People just started coming out of like nowhere and being like, hey, we want you to come work for us, blah, blah, blah. And I ended up finding like this amazing real estate team. We're all former cops.
No way.
What are the chances that I move out here to a random
state? There's too many coincidences not to mean something. Yeah,
I know. And so I get to work with this small group. We're called the Calvary Realty Group, of course, like the Calvary, because it's law enforcement. And like, we're just killing it. And I love that most of our clients are military and law enforcement and firefighters, like all first responders. And it's just worked out that way. Every single time I wanted to do something, like I'm getting into real estate investing this summer. I just happened to meet this girl who's fresh out of the Air Force, who also is already doing real estate investing. So I feel like, like her and I become close. And every time I want to do something, I feel like a little law of attraction going on, because I'll be like, I want to try this. And then all of a sudden somebody who's already done it is coming up to me. And then when I said I wanted to write the book, when we were in our mindset class together, and I wrote people want to write the book. Well, I just happened to, I think, put something out on Instagram. And one of my friends who has wrote a book, he wrote a book like 5-6 years ago, was like, you need a writing coach. This is my writing coach. Contact her. And now I have a writing coach.
Wow.
So it's just,
yes, because it was back in like February. We were part of a mastermind, and you said, someone said, like, what's one of your wildest dreams? And you were like,
yeah,
write a book one day. And then like a couple months later, I see on Instagram, I'm like, she's got pages. She's writing a book. Do you have a title yet? Can you share it?
Yeah, it's called Becoming Bulletproof.
Oh my God.
And this is why it starts the first there's 18 chapters. So this book is giving me a long time to write, but it starts day 1, phase 1 of boot camp. So that's where the first chapter is. And it goes all the way to right now. And it's about the trauma of what I experienced in the Marine Corps, law enforcement, my marriage, becoming a single mom, and then having another life reset. And I want other moms to know that it's never too late.
Yeah.
If you're so miserable, or if your career just doesn't align with your life anymore, it is okay to just pivot and do something completely different. Like, throw yourself into it if it feels good.
Yeah.
But again, it's okay if you're scared. It's okay if you're having those attacks. But at the end of the day, if it feels right, you just freaking do it. And that's what like my book kind of explains, is that it's never too late. You just have to do it.
If you could do it, we could do it. Yes. Oh man, I'm coming to your book signing when the book is out. I'm getting a signed copy in person. So fun. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about like the single mom life.
Yeah.
Because you don't hear many people saying, let me tell you what it's like being a single mom. What's the status? Are you still like legally married? Are you completely separated? How did that go?
Yeah. So here's the thing. And okay, so we'll start with that. After I left my ex-husband. I didn't talk to him for a year. He didn't even contact me.
He didn't try to get his daughter.
Nope. And so I was just happy to be free. I wasn't dating. I didn't have plans to date.
You didn't have time. Oh my gosh, there was no time.
No. So for me, I felt like I didn't need to rush the divorce. I wanted to just be by myself. I didn't want drama. I wanted to be in my own little world without having to. So I didn't rush into the divorce. That was mistake number 1. I didn't rush to the courthouse and was like, here, do this, divorce me, I'm done. I liked being alone. I liked having my own. I bought the cutest townhome. I was so happy. I had my own space. He had completely left, which, coming from a narcissist telling me that if I ever left him, he was going to make my life hell. But luckily he didn't. So he disappeared.
Did you have any idea where he was? Like,
no, I didn't care. So fast forward the year after that. So the second year I was like, I should probably get this ball started, because he wasn't really like helping with anything. I wasn't getting child support or anything like that. But I was like having a little bit of a problem of him not contacting our daughter. And I would cry to my therapist all the time I was like, I don't understand. Like, if the problem is with us, she doesn't have anything to do with this. Like, why won't he call her? I tried to get a hold of him a few times. My daughter at the time, she was so little, she didn't even know what was going on. She didn't remember. She doesn't remember him to this day. Like, they still haven't talked. And so I mean, my therapist is like, you can't make people be a parent if they don't want to be a parent. And it took a long time for me to come over that. Just to realize that no matter what I did, no matter how many times I called him or emailed him, like nothing, I got nothing back. So I started filing for divorce. That problem was I didn't know where he was at, and couldn't find him. I didn't want to get his command involved, because once you get a military member's command involved, it gets it can get pretty nasty. And I was trying to be the nice ex that was like, yeah, all I wanted to, and I was like, you know what, I'm not asking for anything. I just like, divorce me. Didn't happen. Like, I couldn't find him. Again, fast forward to today. I unfortunately had to get his command involved, and we now are serving him. So I will soon be divorced. But again, when you're that single mom coming out of an abusive relationship, I took 5 years off of dating. I didn't go on a single date. I didn't want to date. I healed myself because my biggest thing was I wasn't ready to date. I didn't want to take all that emotional baggage that I had holding on from my ex-husband and just project it onto the next man.
Yeah.
I took the time I went to a lot of therapy. I did self-development courses. I read a lot of self-development books and like so many books. Like I'm addicted to reading now because of it. And now that I am starting to get into dating, everybody, oh my gosh, everybody's been trying to set me up with people.
Even in San Diego, so cute.
Everybody is trying to set me up, and I'm like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. So now that I'm in Texas, I was like, okay, that ball is rolling. Now I can make room for somebody in my life now. And I did meet somebody. We dated for 4 months when I first moved here. Unfortunately, that one didn't work out, but that's okay. Like we're still friends. Like we're good. It just was one of those things where he had a lot on his plate that he needed to focus on, and I just couldn't be that for him. I couldn't be his support system. So
did you ever introduce him to your daughter? Like at what point while you're dating as a single mom do you bring kids in?
That was hard too, because I brought Olivia in to meet him. I want to say after, I think it was like 2.5 months, because I thought everything was really, really good. And I have mom guilt about that, because after he left, it was really confusing to her. And I had to explain to her, because she asked, well, where is so-and-so? And why can't I see him? And I said, honey, like sometimes when people make us sad, we don't have to be their friend. And she's like, oh, he made you sad? I said, yeah, made me a little sad, but we don't have to be friends with people that make us sad. And it killed me. I remember crying a lot, thinking like, I'm so stupid. Like, why didn't I take this slower? I should have known better. But it's
you're learning as you go. Like there's no manual telling us how exactly to do this. Yeah.
No, there's not. I wish there was. But it's just one of those things that like, now I know. And I did get back into going on dates here and there, little dates here and there, because it still is really hard to find somebody who is worth your time, because a lot of men who have never dated a single mom don't know what goes into dating a single mom.
I need to find a babysitter, and like my daughter's going to be up early in the morning. So
and when some of these men are canceling on me last minute and the nanny's already on her way, I'm like,
oh, he's out. He's gone.
Yeah. That already shows me you are not worth my time. The time that I could be staying with my daughter, because we like to go do things together, and that time that could be spent towards her. I don't like to just get the nanny here for no reason.
Right.
The date has to be worth it. The guy has to be worth it. And I feel like, again, nobody really takes it seriously. I haven't met anybody that takes my time seriously. It's hard.
Have you met any single dads?
I did.
Okay. Do they understand more, or is it like?
I met one, but unfortunately he was active duty military and now he lives in another state. So that's not going to work.
No, it doesn't work. The right one will come. The right one will come.
Yeah. We'll see.
What are some other like single mom, like struggles that you have as a single mom? Like, what are some of the things, like motherhood's hard for everyone, but like when you're the primary everything, what are some things that you struggle with?
Working, especially working from home. It's something that I didn't think about, by the way. Look at me, I'm in a closet. And when he's home sick, I mean, I can't call the nanny here, because I don't want to have them. I don't want to have her get sick, and you know, because he has a life to live. And so like sometimes I have to come in my closet and I have to work in here, and I have to give her a bunch of screen time, which I don't want to do. But
hey, we all do it. We all have to do it.
It's hard, and I don't get to just go out with my friends. There's nights where I'm like, oh, I see all my friends and they're out, and I'm like, gosh, I really want to do something like that. Like I want to go out too, but again, like it's you know, and I do have help. Like I said, I have an amazing nanny. I feel like I got lucky. Again, one of those like synchronicity. My nanny, she actually came to me, and I loved her, and my daughter loves her, and she's perfectly just fit into our life like a missing puzzle piece. So I'm lucky with her. And then I have two best friends here, one that I've made at the gym, and then one I made, she actually moved here right before I moved here from San Diego. And so she helps
Oh
me
my
out
gosh,
with,
no way.
yeah.
Oh,
So she helps
wow.
me out with Liv, and it, but it, at the same time, it's like, I don't want to be a burden on my friends and be like, watch my daughter so I can do this and I can do that. And,
Because you
yeah.
start feeling that guilt, like, oh, well, I should be home. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And the guilt is real. It is
Mhm.
100% real. Like, and there's that, I think the biggest challenge is I don't get a break because I mean, I live off of coffee. I'm over caffeinated, which isn't good because I have like the worst ADHD. So I'm like over
Go, 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 go,
caffeinated
go.
a majority of the time because I'll drop my daughter off at school. Most of the time I'm up before her. I have to work before she gets up for school so I can answer emails and get with my clients. Then I drop her off at school and then I go off and do my job. And then I go pick her up from school and then I call it my second shift is with her.
Yeah.
And she has gymnastics, she has swim. She needs to also have a fun day just because I'm burnt out and freaking tired and don't want to get off the couch. Like she still has stuff that she needs to get done. And every single morning I wake up and I hit the ground running and I don't stop until she's officially in bed. And it's exhausting. There is no break. There's nobody coming to take over. There's no husband or boyfriend coming to say like, hey, why don't you go have a glass of wine and go sit down for a bit?
Yeah.
I'll take the baby.
Well, I have my husband who takes my kids to school every day. So I've got like 20 minutes to get ready every single day. Like
yeah,
yeah.
it's hard. Nobody, and I sometimes like I'll break down in tears. Like it's stressful and I'll tell myself like, this is it. Nobody's coming. But then again, maybe if I started dating, maybe I'll find the right one. But as of right now, the biggest struggle is there's no breaks. Mm-mm.
And mom, you want to play this? And you're like, yeah, I'd love to play that.
That's why I always have a glass of wine. If we're gonna play, I better have at least a small glass of wine in my hand. So my she's gonna definitely have that memory of me growing up playing birds with a glass of wine in my hand. It was like, and I joke, and she's like, "Can I have a sip?" I'm like, "No, honey, not until you're 21." Well, why do you get to have it? Guys, like, because it makes me a better mom right now.
Yeah,
okay,
right.
it makes me more imaginative.
Trains and cars yesterday. I'm like, oh my God, my mind. I'm like, I cannot play with you anymore. Yep. Yeah. Oh, so hard.
Yeah.
Well, this has been such a great conversation. I love hearing just your perspective. And there's just so many moms out there, I think, who can relate to one, being stuck and feeling like they want to get out of whatever it is. And just the single mom life. It's been so awesome. So thank you so much for coming on. I am buying your book when it's out. So keep writing.
Oh my gosh.
I'd love to have you chat again. I think we need to have like a virtual wine night.
I'm okay with that. Seriously.
Yeah. Put the kids in bed and I'll meet you on the screen. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Katie.
Well, a big thank you to Magan for sharing her incredible story. You better believe I will be the first one in line to get a signed copy of her book when it comes out. For anyone living in the Texas area, please make sure you check the description below because I am including her information so that you get a chance to work with her if you're looking for a home. And for all of you who joined me for this conversation, thank you so much for coming on. If you've got anything out of this episode, please like and subscribe, leave me a review, or come find me on social media at Burnt Pancakes with Katie. Come say hi. And until then, I will see you on next week's conversation.